In the 1960s, if you see, the Lohiyawaadi Andolan started. The OBC caste started asserting themselves, so as to say. And there was a certain shift in the power balance, right? So in 1967, you see the first non-Congress government coming to power, the first non-upper caste chief minister coming to power. Bihar was as that cusp. It could have been used in any way, okay? But what Lalu tried to do is, he made it a point of us versus them, right? So that was the problem that I see. And hence it is not just normal misgovernance and somebody not being able to deliver on their promises, but when you start making governance about us versus them, about caste, about issues which are not at all related to development, the state suffers. That 1990 to 2000, almost 24 police officers, block level officers were either kidnapped or murdered. In 1994 we had a DM who was lynched by a mob to death. He was essentially lynched to death, but when he was almost dead, and this is quoted in the judgment, it is there when Anand Mohan calls out the younger brother of Chotan Shukla and says, Bhutkun, dekh kya rahe ho, le lo apna badla. And Bhutkun then shots him point blank, Ji Krishna here, then and there, and he's dead. The politics of that time, or the vote back politics of that time, was guided more by identity than by, let's say, a development or any other narratives. And what Laluji had done, especially after Mandal Commission, especially after Ram Mandir Andolan, he had created a very strong, so as to say, wedge between, let's say, the upper castes and the lower castes, right? He projected himself as the Masiha, the hero, the god of the lower castes, right? So in those cases, you cannot make somebody understand the very fact that even though he comes from your caste, he is harmful for you too.
There were multiple regions, misgovernance, crime, corruption, everything was there. क्यों लोगों ने डंप किया लालू जी को?
In the 1990s, Lalu ji would say very witty things to any kind of a logical statement made to him. You talk about development, he'll mold it in such a way that it will go to something else. रोड मांगिए तो रोड आपको क्यों चाहिए? आपके पास गाड़ी
हो जाएगा, तेज चलाएगा, सब गिर जाएगा,
और गाड़ी आपके पास थोड़ी हो, तो अगड़ी जातियों के पास है, तो आपको क्या फायदा होगा? लालू जी did not see the Naxalite problem as a law and order problem. He saw that as a political problem. And even in 1992, when the first series of massacres happened in Bara and Gaya, there's a lot of role that is alleged is that to be of Surinder Yadav, who was RJD leader then in that area.
सुशासन बाबू, the thing, नीतीश जी का नाम पड़ा सुशासन बाबू, वो कहीं ना कहीं that is kind of denting ना.
लेकिन अभी के टर्म्स में आपके पास नीतीश जैसा कोई दूसरा नेता बिहार में नहीं. उनको अगर कोई चीज ठीक ठाक लग रही है एंड गवर्नेंस वाइज, फिर भी नीतीश जी को आप बोलते हैं कि यार जो भी है ठीक है, मतलब
at least there are no allegation against him, personal allegation,
कोई करप्शन नहीं, which is in itself बिहार जैसे स्टेट में अपने आप में बहुत बड़ी बात है कि 20 साल कोई चीफ मिनिस्टर रहा, उसके ऊपर एक करप्शन का एलिगेशन नहीं है, which is a massive thing. So नीतीश जी भी इसीलिए हैं क्योंकि लोग चाहते हैं नीतीश जी रहे.
नमस्कार, welcome to another edition of Meet the Author, and today the guest is Mrityunjay Sharma, who is author of Broken Promises. The book came last year, and the book is mainly based on political landscape of Bihar. The book is still relevant as in the end of this year, Bihar is going to face the election. So, we are going to discuss about the book, about the present situation in Bihar, the political development in Bihar. Mrityunjay ji, welcome to Organiser.
Thank you so much and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Mrityunjay ji, as the name of this book is Broken Promises, we all know that there is always a story behind every book and the headline, cover headline of the book. What is your story behind writing this book?
So I come from the same land. I was born and brought up in a coal India township very close to Ranchi, which then used to be combined Bihar.
Dhanbad.
Yes, near in between Ranchi and Bokaro. It used to be undivided Bihar. Now it is Jharkhand. So a lot of these things that I have written, that I have kind of tried to explain, it is through lived experiences. So a lot of these things I may not have been within those incidents that have happened, but I've read through newspapers, listened to people talking about it, and those incidents and those things, they surrounded, so as to say, our society in those times. So it always used to intrigue me as to what is so unique about Bihar that it gets such a bad name. And especially when I came out of Bihar, I came to Delhi to prepare for my J exams. And the kind of image that I saw of that state, it really was very, very surprising.
You are talking about which year?
This would be 2004. Yeah. And it was really surprising as to what could be so wrong. In fact, I've quoted an incident in the book, which is we used to have these doubt sessions in our I used to study at FitG, used to be then the topmost JE coaching, So we used to have these doubt sessions, and there was a chemistry teacher who had called a few of our students, for us to discuss our doubts. And there were 3-4 of us. And she was very kind, and she was, just to create that rapport, she asked one of the kids as to where do you come from. And that kid was so reluctant to say, and he started twisting and turning, and then with a very reluctant tone said, "Madam, kya bataye aapko, Chhapra Bihar se hai." Right? And there was so much apology in that tone. There was so much, sadness in that tone.
There was no proud in belonging to some state.
Proud to aap chhod hi dijiye. It was, he was so ashamed to be, be coming from that state. And well, the teacher consoled her and told her, she told her own Bihar connections. She told, I am from Bihar. Why are you so ashamed to be? But the question was that what could be so wrong with a state that a 18-year-old kid that has come out of that state is so ashamed to say that he comes from that state? It must be something so wrong, right? And hence, it always intrigued me, and I wanted to write about it, to explain it, to express it. What is the history of it? How did we come at that place? It could not have occurred overnight. There must have been, decades of, things that have preceded it. And hence, I wanted to write it to, for the larger nation, for the larger people who don't know about Bihar, for the coming generations who don't know that period, to read about it and understand what we have gone through.
So I can connect it with, because when I got enrolled in 2006 in, I think, Indraprastha University, I was the only Bihar in my class. And the question which I used to face from my fellow classmates, कि वहाँ पे ऐसे ही किडनैपिंग हो जाती है क्या, दिन में ही बलात्कार हो जाता है, तो इट वाज लाइक कि हम कहाँ से आते हैं. एंड बिहारी यूज टू बी अ गाली दीज डेज, यू मस्ट हैव रिमेंबर. अच्छा, लेट्स मूव फॉरवर्ड. यू हैव सेड दैट Bihar decline was not just a result of bad leadership, but of broken promises made in the name of identity. What was the reason behind this?
So, see, what happened in Bihar in the 1990s is, by 1990, Bihar was facing a churn, I would say, right? If you see, the initial years of Bihar was ruled by Congress continuously. Congress had a hegemony on Bihar. Most of the leaders who came from Congress came from the upper castes, came from the landed gentry, so as to say the Zamindar families and so on. Right? So the ruling class was broadly defined. Later, what happened in the 1960s, if you see, the Lohiyawadi Andolan started. The OBC caste started asserting themselves, so as to say. And there was a certain shift in the power balance, right? So in 1967, you see the first non-Congress government coming to power, the first non-upper caste chief minister coming to power, right? So there was a churn that was going on. Now, by 1990, this churn had almost completed, so as to say, right? Which is when you see in 1990, Congress was thrown out of power. A chief minister that came in, he came in from an OBC caste. He came from a background which was very poor, very impoverished. He did not come from money, so as to say, right? And so that churn, after having completed, right, there was a kind of a Bihar was as that cusp. It could have been used in any way, okay. But what Lalu tried to do is, he made it a point of us versus them, right? He made it a point that till 1990, till now, it is they who were ruling us. It is now our turn to rule them, right? So rather than, integrating very seamlessly into the society, rather than focusing on development narratives, rather than picking up those groups and castes which were, so as to say, deprived and, bringing them at par with the other castes, what he did was, there was a divide that was already existing, and he made that divide strongly, very, very he made that wide even, right? So that was the problem that I see. And hence it is not just normal misgovernance and somebody, you know, not being able to deliver on their promises. But when you start making governance about us versus them, about caste, about issues which are not at all related to development, the state suffers.
किताब में अगर हम कहें तो आपने ठीक ठाक सेक्शन जो है एक लालू यादव जी के रूल का लिया है और खास करके वो जो 15-20 साल है उसका जिक्र किया है, एंड यू हैव मेंशन्ड मेनी एनेक्डोट्स ऑफ दैट एरा. इफ आई आस्क यू कि एकाध कौन सा ऐसी कहानी थी जिसने सच में बिहार की छवि पूरे तरीके से रून कर दी, बिकॉज वो मान लीजिए कि मीडिया में भी काफी पॉपुलर थे, ही यूज्ड टू बी वेरी फैमिलियर विद द मीडिया आल्सो. तो कैन यू शेयर 1-2 एनेक्डोट्स की जिसने बिहार को कंप्लीटली, बिहार की छवि को बाहर खराब किया?
Lot of them. See, Bihar was never a poster boy for law and order, or so as to say, you know, for development also. So, but what happened in 1990, I think a lot of these things, undesirable things, for example, crime, for example, booth loot, for example, kidnappings, for example, paper leaks, they got institutionalized. That is the problem, right?
Kidnapping used to be the industry kind of thing there.
Correct. And see, crime will always exist, right? But the role of the state is not to be on the side of the crime or criminals. It is to be on the other side, who is trying to catch them and punish them for what they're doing. In 90s, if you see, the crime, the criminals and the state was on the same side. So most of the leaders who were supporting, let's say, that government were at the helm of most of the serious crimes that was happening in Bihar. So any of the bigger crimes, if you see in that period, you can see them being linked back to one of the, you know, one of these regional satraps or one of these leaders or political leaders in Bihar, right? And hence, if you see, nobody had thought, in fact, if you see that 1990 to 2000, almost 24 police officers, block level officers were either kidnapped or murdered. Two dozen. These days, you cannot think of a senior police officer, a block level officer, a BDO being kidnapped or murdered. And not just one. In 1994, we had a DM who was lynched by a mob to death. This you cannot imagine in a civilized society of today, that a DM, somebody can even slap a DM, let alone him be lynched to death, right? DM whose name was G. Krishnaiya, he was the DM of Gopalganj, which is Laluji's home district. Right? He came from a Dalit family. He came from Andhra Pradesh and had a very wonderful story, right? His father was a coolie on the railway station, right? And he came from such a background and then worked very hard, worked alongside his father, then became a clerk, then, succeeded in UPSC, became a collector, chose Bihar, worked in Champaran, then was shifted to Gopalganj. A very inspirational story for anybody, right? 35 years of age at the time when he was killed, right? A young, successful story. And on that day, fateful day, he was coming from, a meeting from Vaishali to Gopalganj, right? And on the way, he was crossing Muzaffarpur. And that is where, there was a huge crowd that had assembled that had the body of Chotan Shukla, right? So Chotan Shukla, as we all know, Chotan Shukla was somebody who was a Bahubali in that area. He was preparing for the elections for next year. And he was kind of on the side of Anand Mohan, who was at odds with Brij Bihari Prasad, right? Brij Bihari Prasad was another strongman from that region, very close to Laluji, minister in his government. And just a couple of years ago, what had happened is Anand Mohan had very cleverly brought the, kind of rival caste of Rajputs and Bhumihars together. Right?
To his fold.
To his fold, right? And he had kind of created a very formidable combination, right? And when you see in 1993, there was a by-election in Vaishali. He had won because of that combination. And that was like challenging Laluji's, electoral forte. And so, and he then created a BPP party, and Chotan Shukla was almost declared a candidate for Kesaria Vidhan Sabha constituency, and he was coming back from, kind of campaign and meeting people in his constituency, when his car was stopped by some people who were in police uniform near Sanjay Cinema. And then, all of the people in the car were shot down, with the AK-47s. So this was, and lot of these people, because they saw this as rivalry between Anand Mohan and Laluji, right? So they thought Brij Bihari Prasad was complicit in this, and the district administration was complicit in this murder, right, of Chotan Shukla. The next day, his body was being carried for the final funeral, right? And it was a 5,000 people strong mob. Anand Mohan, his wife, Lovely Anand, were leading it, right? He gave a very fiery speech to that crowd, Anand Mohan, and the crowd was already very instigated, so as to say. And when this crowd was, just walking alongside the national highway near a village called Khabra, and G. Krishnaiya's vehicle was passing that place. People, when they saw his car in his ambassador with a red beacon on top of it, they thought, this is the car of the Muzaffarpur DM. And they started throwing stones at it. And G. Krishnaiya comes out of that car. He pleads to people. He tells them that he's not Muzaffarpur DM. He's the DM of Gopalganj, and he's just passing through. But in those days, people did not used to recognize DMs also, because there was so much of distance and so on. So nobody believed his words, right? And the second point is, it was a mob. So there was no logic to a mob, right? They started beating him up. He was essentially lynched to death, but when he was almost dead, and this is quoted in the judgment, it is there when Anand Mohan calls out the younger brother of Chotan Shukla and says, Bhutkun, dekh kya rahe ho, le lo apna badla. And Bhutkun then shots him point blank, G. Krishnaiya, then and there, and he's dead. And this is then very, very widely reported, because, DM was, and then, Chotan Shukla runs away, and much later, 4 years later in 1998, in a concerted effort, then Chotan Shukla is killed a couple of years later by the people of Brij Bihari Prasad. And then Brij Bihari Prasad is killed in 1998 while he was being treated in IGIMS, right? And a concerted effort by the youngest brother of Shukla brothers, Munna Shukla, Suraj Bhan, and Sri Prakash Shukla, who used to come from Purvanchal, right? East UP. In a concerted effort, they killed Brij Bihari Prasad while he was the sitting minister in Laluji's government. So these kind of rivalries and incidents show that in a society which is not governed by laws, right, which is just governed by power, raw power, nobody's safe.
And that was the daur of kind of, we can say, Bahubalis. Suraj Bhan Singh, there were many Yadav, Sadhu Yadav was there, Akhilesh Rai was there. There were many names which have been the part of government, kind of, you can say. So, but I just want to understand कि despite being all these things, कि लोग भी देख रहे थे, जनता भी देख रही थी कि what the state is going through. Despite that, that confidence लालू जी used to have कि voting होगा, जिन निकलेगा और हम जीतेंगे. वो confidence, where did it came from? कहाँ से आता था वो confidence?
So, see, often what happens is
because that was quite evident कि आप 6 बजे के बाद घर से निकल नहीं सकते हैं. राज्य में, जिले में कोई डॉक्टर नई गाड़ी नहीं ले सकता. I have seen these days. स्कूल के बाहर से बच्चों की किडनैपिंग हो जाती थी. Despite all these things, misgovernance, वो confidence कहाँ से आता था?
See, when you are passing through a certain phase, right, you're not able to analyze it. Okay, it is only in hindsight that you are able to analyze things. So when we were in that phase, it was very difficult to analyze and conclude that why is it happening. You would rather see it as very isolated incidents. अच्छा आज एक kidnapping हो गई, अच्छा आज एक murder हो गया. You're not able to link things and why is it all happening. It is today that we are discussing that we are able to see that it is an outcome of the misgovernance, very, very serious misgovernance, right? So that is one. Second, the politics of that time, or the vote back politics of that time, was guided more by identity than by, let's say, a development or any other narratives. When that happens, when identity politics takes over the politics of development or any other kind, people who vote for, let's say, a certain leader or Laluji in this case, will vote for him despite anything else, right? And what Laluji had done, especially after Mandal Commission, especially after Ram Mandir Andolan, he had created a very strong, so as to say, wedge between, let's say, the upper castes and the lower castes, right? And he projected himself as the Masiha, the hero, the god of the lower castes, right? Now that divide was so strong, right, that a lot of these castes, they rallied behind Lalu for nothing else but for the very fact that he's our hero, come what may, right? And they would vote for him. And I would not say all of these castes, but at least his caste definitely, Yadavs and Muslims, who he told that, you know, if you have to, in kind of in a subtle messaging way, if you have to be safe, it is I who can keep you safe, right? There's no other option with you. So that 30% of the vote bank was his captive vote bank, right? So in those cases, you cannot make somebody understand the very fact that even though he comes from your caste, he's harmful for you too. So if the kids are not going to school, it includes your kids also. If people are not safe, it includes you as well. It is very difficult to understand. It is much later that they understood that the misgovernance is affecting them also very badly. And so you see, when they lost so badly. But it takes people a lot of time to realize that very fact.
Things started changing from 2005 in Bihar. But if I ask you, what are the reasons you see कि क्यों लोगों ने डंप किया लालू जी को? There were reasons, there were multiple reasons, misgovernance, crime, corruption, everything was there. But in your opinion, because you have extensively written about all these things, in your opinion, what were the core issues people of Bihar thinking now it's high time now, Lalu need to go out of power?
So what happens is, again, when you are through that phase, so for example, let's say if I tell you that this year our state has grown only at 1% growth rate, our GSDP, it may not affect your life today as of now. So you would be more indifferent to it, right? But over 15 years, when such a state, when the entire nation was growing at such a rapid pace after liberalization, and Bihar was growing under 1% for 15 years, it started showing in everything. Everything, right from the roads. The roads were the worst possible roads anywhere in the country. There was no roads essentially. Even the best of the towns, the most, so as to say, the centers of Bihar did not have roads. गांव की तो आप बात ही छोड़ दीजिए. Barely villages had electricity, right? And even
if you are getting 4 to 5 hour electricity, that is more than enough
even
at
in
that
Patna,
time.
Right? Even in Patna. So it started showing in daily lives. Security. When people started seeing that anybody could be kidnapped, even our kids could be kidnapped. They started seeing the fact that we have to close our doors at 6 p.m. in the evening, right? That started showing. Now, many of these people also then started visiting other places in the country, right? After liberalization, jobs were created. So this is Bihari laborers who went out to Bombay, to Surat, to Punjab, to Delhi. When they came back, they said, no, the entire world is not like this. Bihar is very unique in these terms. Rest of the states are doing wonderful. There's no security problems of going out in the evening. So that awareness, that understanding, and then in the 1990s, Lalu he would say very witty things to any kind of a logical statement made to him. You talk about development, he'll mold it in such a way that it would go to something else. रोड मांगिए तो रोड आपको क्यों चाहिए, आपके पास गाड़ी
हो जाएगा, तेज चलाएगा, सब गिर जाएगा,
और गाड़ी आपके पास थोड़ी हो तो अगड़ी जातियों के पास है तो आपको क्या फायदा होगा, right? Those kind of statements he used to make.
And he used to do the gimmicks also कि कहीं जा रहे हैं, किसी को बिठा लिया, उसके साथ थोड़ी देर हेलीकॉप्टर पे घूम लिया.
So because it was identity politics that he was focusing on. But by 2005 people started realizing that it is affecting their lives very, very badly. They have been left behind the entire country by miles and miles, right? And that realization, when it seeped in all of, and in fact in 2005, you see very ironically, the same Laluji in his election campaign said that if I come to power now, मैं बिहार की सड़कों को हेमा मालिनी के गाल जैसा चिकना बना दूंगा. Somebody जो 15 साल तक सड़कें मांगने पे बोलते थे क्यों चाहिए, वही लालू 2005 में उन्होंने बोलना शुरू कर दिया.
And leave aside the roads of rural areas, even the roads that are connecting to the capital, the Patna. आप महुआ पटना का रोड देखिए, वो कभी ठीक ही नहीं हुआ. मतलब इवन अगर CM used to go by his car उसी रास्ते से, तो उसको भी उसी रास्ते से जाना है.
In fact, I was just watching an interview of राघोपुर जो सीट है हमेशा लालू जी के परिवार की सीट रही है।
तेजस्वी की अभी सीट है।
हाँ, लालू जी वहां से जीते, राबड़ी जी जीती, अब तेजस्वी वहीं से जीतते हैं। 2010 में सतीश राय वहां से जीते थे, राइट। एंड उनका एक इंटरव्यू में देख रहा था, वो पहले लालू जी के साथ ही थे काफी पहले। तो कहते थे कि पहले लालू जी से हम लोग बार बार जाके कहते थे कि जो राघोपुर है वो बरसात के सीजन में एक टापू बन जाता है। इट इज डिस्कनेक्टेड फ्रॉम एनीवेयर एंड पीपल हैव टू टेक बोट्स टू रीच पटना। Or especially if there is a medical emergency, especially at night, you would have to spend 10-15,000 just to get a boat and go to Patna, and even that is so risky crossing through those boats, right? And he says that I urged Laluji a lot of times to get a bridge get a bridge connecting Patna to Raghopur, and Laluji would say कि दियारा में पुल थोड़ी बनता है, वो सब पानी काट के ले जाएगा मिट्टी, तो पुल लटकता रह जाएगा, and he never got that bridge created. And now Nitish's government has gotten that bridge. Raghopur is connected to Patna. In a 15-minute time, somebody can travel. So that's a massive difference you see. Yeah.
Actually, you have uncovered a chapter specifically on caste war in Bihar extensively. So, if I ask you, what were the forces that escalated that social fracture at that time, apart from the Lalu ji? क्या कुछ था वहाँ पे जो इस caste war को जो है और बढ़ा दिया था?
See, वो कास्ट डिवाइड हमेशा था, राइट। एंड व्हाट हैपेंस इज कास्ट डिवाइड क्योंकि हायरार्किकल था, राइट। अपर कास्ट हैं, फिर ओबीसीज हैं, फिर दलित्स हैं। वो कास्ट धीरे धीरे क्लास डिवाइड भी बन जाता है। तो जो सबसे ऊपर कास्ट है उनके पास जमीनें हैं, ओबीसी के पास उससे थोड़ी कम है, और दलितों के पास बिल्कुल भी जमीनें नहीं है। तो इकोनॉमिक डिवाइड भी बहुत ज्यादा क्रिएट होता गया बिहार में, राइट। In spite of the fact that Bihar was the first state to abolish zamindari, Bihar was one of the first states to bring in a land sealing act. Bihar was the first or only state to have a Bhudan movement by Acharya Vinoba Bhave ji. Bihar was one of the centers of JP Andolan.
You have talked about these things in the book also.
Yes. Yeah. So in spite of all of this, there was a social divide, and it got created, manifested into an economic divide, right? Now that economic divide was first, so as to say, it was used by a lot of leaders from OBC caste who were emerging, who highlighted it. And it was also used by the Naxalites who came in Bihar in the late 1970s when they started flourishing, right? Now, the Naxalite movement got a lot of support from these castes who were historically impoverished, depressed, right? And the Naxalite movement started gaining a lot of ground, right? These were underground movements. They had weapons, right? And then they started challenging the landed class, right? So by 1990, you see the other side of the landed class, either by support of the Naxalites or by support of leaders who came from the OBC caste largely. There were voices being raised against the historical injustices, right? So that divide was there. Now, at the same time, in 1990, the Mandal Commission came, the Ram Mandir Andolan came, right? So the Mandal Commission already, there was already a divide. It highlighted that divide, because there was anti-reservation protests. Then there were pro-reservation protests. Then there were leaders like Lalu Yadav who, kind of took the baton of supporting the pro-reservation. Lot of incidents in which he got buses burned, right, who were going to rallies. So that divide got created, and since the Naxalite movement also implicitly had the state support after 1990, Lalu ji did not see the Naxalite problem as a law and order problem. He saw that as a political problem. So in fact, even within the Naxalite movement, if you see, there were different factions, okay? 3 major factions were there. One is CPI-ML Liberation, one is MCC, Maoist Coordination Committee, and one is Party Unity. So Liberation largely had vote bank and supporters coming from the Dalit castes, right? Which is where Lalu ji saw them as cutting through his own vote bank. So in 1990 elections, if you see, IPF, the frontal organization, political organization of liberation, they won 7 seats, okay, in the Vidhan Sabha. Lalu ji got 4 of them transferred to his party, right? Then other leaders of the CPI-ML liberation, what he did is he offered them plum posts and commissions and ayogs, and literally weakened them. But MCC, they did not have a political outfit, and it kind of supported, his party. Most of the leaders of MCC came from his caste, right? So he had a very implicit support to them. In fact, in 1994 elections, one of the leaders, one of the area commanders of MCC won on RJT ticket. Right, one of their very prominent leaders, he went on a campaign trail with Laluji publicly, right? So when state starts supporting one of these organizations implicitly, they also get emboldened that they can do something.
That are involved in too much of violence and massacres and all. So.
Right, and even in 1992, when the first series of massacres happened in Bara in Gaya, there's a lot of role that is alleged is that to be of Surinder Yadav. Right, who was RJD leader then in that area. So that side became very, very strong because of implicit state support and already, kind of a social divide that was there. And when that started happening, the upper caste leaders formed their own armies, saying we'll have to resist them. And that then, got into a spate of massacres that ran over the next 8 years like anything in Bihar.
वो दौर था, वो अलग दौर था बिहार का, कह सकते हैं. अच्छा, वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट कास्ट थिंग. सो अभी रिसेंटली बिहार विटनेस द कास्ट सेंसस आल्सो, और सर्वे हुआ, तमाम चीज़ें हुई ना. बीजेपी यूज्ड टू अगेंस्ट द मूव एट दैट टाइम, बट नाउ बीजेपी हैज़ कम अप विद कि दे विल डू इट across the country. So why this change of stance? How do you see this? A party that were against something and now they are adopting the same thing. Why this?
That's a very good question. So see, as a party, BJP has always been very against using caste for political reasons. Okay, because again, the more you use it, the divide keeps getting widened. It does not. You essentially should try to level that difference and not widen it. But what's been happening in the last 2-3 years across the country, we'll have to see that. One, first, Bihar conducted a caste census. It was supposed to be a survey after which some data should have come out that would help you understand the stage of the society and that would help you form better policies, right? Socioeconomic policies. But what essentially happened after that survey is people just started, quoting their own numbers on social media saying, हम 10% है, तुम 4 हो, हम 14 हैं, तुम 2 है, को बोल रहा है मेरा 4 है.
उसके बाद एक नया स्लोगन भी आया कि जिसके जितनी भागीदारी उसकी जितनी हिस्सेदारी.
पहले से कोई बात नहीं, लेकिन the conversations on the social media and everywhere else, it just remained to the codes of the caste and their numbers. None of it translated into kind of a socio-economic policy and what could be done basis those numbers, and nothing happened out of that. So to waste 500 crore rupees just to know the numbers of a certain community is a waste of money, I would say, unless it translates into a policy, right? Same thing happened.
Concrete.
Same thing happened in Karnataka, and Karnataka is even worse if you see. They got a caste census done. The party members, including the deputy chief minister of the same government, has rejected that caste census, saying the numbers are forged, right? Now they are saying we'll conduct a second caste census, right? Which is essentially to say the caste census that you conducted, the numbers don't hold. Now you're going to spend another, round of money to, get a caste census conducted. Telangana had a caste census conducted. Now what the problem that is happening is, all of these states, when they conduct such a survey, the methodology is not the same, right? There are also, kind of doubts on the scientificness of that methodology, right? Second, now if you had to compare the, let's say, socio-economic status of a certain caste, let's say Yadavs in Bihar to Yadavs in Karnataka, you cannot do that because the methodology has been different, right? It's not the same data, comparable data. So when all the states are going through this path, spending so much money, and in spite of that, nothing is coming out of it. And then the opposition keeps on using this to say that caste census, as if the caste census is a panacea to all problems of the society, right? And hence the center took a stance that, okay, let a standard scientific survey caste census be conducted across the country. The data which can then be used by any state as they want to use it, that cannot be challenged saying no, the state government this and that, and that can be then comparable across the states also. So a lot of these castes, if you see, a certain caste would be a OBC caste in Haryana, but a general caste in Uttar Pradesh. A lot of their examples of Jats, in fact, if you see, right? And when can you do that? When you have the same data across these states to compare, right? And hence I think the center took this stance of kind of making the political use of that caste census be stopped at that point of time, and to say let's get it conducted.
Because some of the political analysts also said that ki anyway caste census used to be going to be one of the core issues in Bihar, and BJP by declaring it कि हम पूरे देश में कराएंगे, they have snatched a core issue from RJD. How do you see this? कि this was one of the purpose behind the declaration, or
so? I would say, see. It is when the caste census got conducted, it was the Mahagathbandhan Sarkar in Bihar, right?
JDU and RJD,
JDU and RJD, Congress with them. They have gotten it conducted. Now Rahul Gandhi this year in January in a program in Gandhi Sabhagar in Patna says he does not believe in that data. He says that data is fudged. Your own government has gotten that caste census conducted, and now you're saying that data is fudged, and now you're saying we will have a fresh round of caste census. And hence I'm saying the caste census was being used politically so badly, right, that it had to stop. And I think it is a good step taken by the center to say we'll have a very fresh, free and fair kind of uniform caste census across the country. Now you cannot just use it for political reasons, saying something like caste census aa jayega to puri duniya ki sare problem hi solve ho jayegi.
So Mrityunjay ji, as we were discussing about the caste thing in Bihar and the crime, so do you think that Bihar has fully recovered from that era of caste interest and criminal things, or it is still there?
No, it's a social thing, so you cannot just bring it down to zero at any point of time. You still have caste.
Because there are leaders, basically mainly from the RJD, they are raising the slogans like Bura Bal kind of. वो दोबारा से उस तरीके के slogans ला रहे हैं. तो they have been trying to bring that Bihar in the same time during the election just to get the benefits of caste thing.
See, RJD benefits any time there is a clear agada banam pichhada divide.
Definitely.
Okay, so RJD will do anything to make a situation wherein there is a agada banam pichhada divide, right? And they benefit extensively from it. The caste divide already exists in Bihar. There is a lot of voting that happens on caste lines, right? There are a lot of bahubalis already existing in Bihar. There are a lot of these leaders who use caste to, appeal for votes and, rally their castemen, so as to say. So that is there, that will not go away. And RJD will try and time and again will try to, use it so as to say, because see what has happened over the years is RJD is now not considered as a party of OBCs or Dalits. It is considered a party of Yadavs and Muslims.
Yadav and Muslims.
So say they are not currently the representatives of even the OBC caste, so as to say. EBCs को भी आप हटा दीजिए, Dalits तो आप छोड़ ही दीजिए. So they will try and do anything to become a leader of a certain entire group and not just a caste, which they have not been able to crack.
But if we see the developments of recent years, Tejasvi is desperately trying to bring that fold into his fold. The other, we are talking about the EBC, the front upper caste, and we have seen during the MLC elections also how he has played that caste things. So he has been trying it very desperately, and we can see that. So do you think that he will be successful to bring that fold into his fold?
See, you may say all the right things because it is the right thing to say, right? But you will always have a certain sequence of priorities, right? While I may say, I would want everybody to vote for me, there is a certain constituent who I will focus on more, right? So while Tejasvi may say कि A to Z की party है, सबकी है, युवाओं की है, ये वो,
yes,
it will not reflect in his actions, right? So for example, now there are leaders from his party who have been quoting Bura Bal Saaf Karo again, right? There is a MLA from his party, Munna Yadav, I think his name, है ना? उसने भी statement दिया, वो कुछ सरनेम्स का नाम लेके
डोमिनेंट
हाँ कि ये मिश्रा शर्मा, ये इनकी राजनीति अब गई, अब ये पीछे ही रहेंगे, आगे नहीं आएंगे,
सिंबॉलिक रहेंगे, बस
सिंबॉलिक रहेंगे. नो, वो ऐसे ही बयान नहीं दे रहे अपने मन से. These are endorsed by their leader, because he himself cannot say that. अगर endorse नहीं रहेगा तो तुरंत उसके बयान को रिजेक्ट करेंगे. कभी रिजेक्ट नहीं करते. आप देखिए, पहला ये. दूसरा उनका टिकट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन आप देखिए, भैया बोल कितना भी लीजिए, बट एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आप पार्टी का स्ट्रक्चर देखिए, उसमें जितने लोग हैं आपके वो देखिए, जो आपके सबसे प्रोमिनेंट लीडर्स हैं, स्पोक्स पर्सन है, वो देखिए, सब आपकी कास्ट से है। उनका टिकट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन अब 2015 का देखिए, 48% ऑफ हिज टिकट्स वेंट टू यादव कैंडिडेट्स। आप बोलते हैं जिसकी जितनी संख्या भारी, तो यादव का पॉपुलेशन तो 14% है, आप उनको दे रहे हैं 48% टिकट्स, राइट। आप ईबीसी की बात करते हैं, ईबीसी की पॉपुलेशन 36%, उनको टिकट इन्होंने दिया 14%। तो दैट शोज ना कि फिर आप बोलने के लिए ईबीसी आपको चाहिए, लेकिन आप टिकट तो नहीं दे रहे उनको। 2020 में फिर उन्होंने 40% टिकट दिया सिर्फ और सिर्फ यादव को।
नहीं, even the television debates ना, their spokesperson
Everybody
keep on abusing upper caste.
Yes.
Oh, that is quite evident.
आप कोई भी डिबेट में आप कुछ भी लॉजिक जाइए, वो तुरंत आ जाएंगे कि अगड़ी जाति का। अगर उसका टाइटल देखेंगे फिर बोलेंगे अगड़ी जाति का। That's their narrative.
अच्छा, let's go back to 1970s, especially during the JP movement. उस समय जो मूवमेंट था उसका सेंटर में क्या था, बिहार सेंटर में था, टॉपिक्स क्या थे वो भी हमें पता है। बट ऐसा क्या हो गया कि फिर से जो है बिहार वहां से निकला, एक देश को दिशा देने वाली बात होती है, एंड देन अगेन गेट इन्वॉल्व इनटू दिस क्राइम एंड करप्शन थिंग। सो क्या बदला? क्योंकि सभी बड़े नेता, इफ वी टॉक अबाउट बिहार, almost top leadership at that time, whether it is of JDU, BJP or RJD, every big leader came from that movement. तो ऐसा क्या बदला जो फिर से एक देश को दिशा देने की जहां बात हो रही थी और वापस से फंस के वहीं पे आ गए वापस से?
See, JP movement, because there was a common, so as to say, there was a government you were fighting against, a powerful government, Indira Gandhi's government, right? Which was failing on the front of corruption, economy, and so on, right? And so it united everybody, but I think it did not lead to a social transformation. So in that moment, everybody was together up against the government. But even after 1977, if you see, when they formed the government, in center and in Bihar, those governments were not stable. In both the center and the state, the governments fell, right? A second, in Bihar, after Karpuri Thakur, Ramsundar Das came as the chief minister, right? In center also, you see the same. And then their governments also fell in 1980, right? So at that point of time, I see that as a revolution that, may have overthrown the government, that was against the emergency and so on. But the social change that it should have brought with itself, that did not come along. And hence, in 1980, you again see the Congress coming back with a thumping majority in center and in Bihar. So actually nothing changed.
So let's talk about the much infamous Jungle Raj thing, because बिहार की बात करते हैं तो वो आ ही जाता है कहीं ना कहीं, and we all know कि what happened during that era. But if you look at the recent months, I will not go into the recent years, the recent months, the kind of murder, the kind of kidnapping happened in Bihar, especially in Patna, the capital city. They have once again people starting thinking about that now the Jungle Raj has gone, but the soft Jungle Raj has come again. That has resurfaced again. So how do you see this rise of crime in Bihar, especially when the election is near?
No, any kind of a crime or a rise in crime is deplorable, right? And law and order being a state subject, the state cannot absolve itself by saying that the condition was much worse earlier and it is much better now. Even a single act of crime that gets conducted in a certain state, the state must hold itself accountable and be ready to solve for it, with all sincerity. Having said that, what I think is, the crimes that have occurred recently have been very striking. But the state has also been very, very proactive in terms of trying to solve it as soon as possible. At least in some of these very much reported incidents of Gopal Khemka and the Paras Hospital incident, the murderers or the shooters were, nabbed very shortly. What I think is the larger problem is what is the response of the state to some of these crimes, right? So the crime will exist in any society. We have to accept that. The numbers are not going to go to zero. Even in a state like UP, which these days we hail as the example of law and order, there are crimes which happen. But what is the response of the state when a certain crime happens? So if there's a crime which is preventable, it should be preventable with intelligence and so on. If a crime that happens which is not preventable, the state must go out all the way to nab the criminals as soon as possible and to get them punished according to justice
that is fine. That is that I understand. It can't be zero, but it used to be a kind of topic for BJP, the ruling party, NDA, कि जंगल राज हुआ करता था. Now the opposition, राजद is raising the issue कि हम लोगों का जंगल राज आपको याद था, लेकिन इसको क्या कहेंगे. Even Chirag Paswan, he is also attacking the government, the ruling government. So my point is कि जो एक आपके पास core issue हुआ करता था कि law and order is our core thing, इस पे हम compromise नहीं करेंगे. सुशासन बाबू, the thing, नीतीश जी का नाम पड़ा सुशासन बाबू, वो कहीं ना कहीं that is kind of denting ना. So how do you see this कि, or especially when the election is near?
No, I certainly agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. I still consider these acts of crimes that have happened, this phase, to be temporary. That's my belief in the government, right? I still feel this was temporary, and thereafter we have not heard of, a lot of these serious incidents over the past few weeks. So I think that's a temporary phase that the state has taken very serious cognizance of, and I don't think that's going to be it's going to be a lengthy phase of such kind of crimes getting conducted. I think the state is very serious on that part, that it does not want in any way for the state to have a narrative that there's a crime which is back.
So let's talk about, there is a chapter that the scam that took India, that is mainly on fodder scam.
Yeah.
So, and you have also give a reference to the book about the Gopalganj to Raisina, mainly on the life of Lalu ji. उसमें लालू जी ने खुद को क्लीन चिट दे दिया ऑलमोस्ट, क्योंकि आपने उसका रेफरेंस लिया. दैट्स व्हाई आई एम आस्किंग यू कि उसमें मोस्ट ऑफ द लालू जीज एक्शंस वेर जस्टिफाइड, कि ऐसा हुआ था तो ये क्यों हुआ, क्राइम था तो क्यों हुआ, तो उन्होंने स्कैम को भी जस्टिफाइड किया गया है. तो हाउ डू यू सी दिस वन एट वन पॉइंट यू आर सेइंग दैट कि वो जो स्कैम हुआ वो पूरे दुनिया को पता है, एंड पैरेलली कि वो जस्टिफिकेशन कैसे देखते हैं?
See, most of the defense that comes for fodder scam from Laluji, his family, his supporters, his spokesperson, can be very clearly listed down in 2-3 points.
I want to add one more line,
Yeah.
क्योंकि उसमें भी आप बाद में देखेंगे ना, इन लेटर ईयर्स उसमें भी वो किया गया कि अपर कास्ट ने एक यादव को फंसाया उसमें, मिश्रा जी एंड ऑल, क्योंकि उसमें स्कैम किसी और ने किया, फंसाया गया लालू जी को. आई वांट टू हियर दैट स्टोरी फ्रॉम यू.
So that's what I'm saying. So the most common defenses can be listed down in TV debates and on social media and so on. The first one is कि लालू जी अकेले थोड़ी उसमें किए,
हाँ,
सब किया. उसमें जगन्नाथ मिश्रा ने भी किया, उसमें और बहुत सारे ब्यूरोक्रेट्स थे, 500 लोग थे. Nobody is denying that. But how does that make Lalu ji any more liable for it than anybody else? It is something like 1000 मर्डर हुआ तो मैंने भी एक कर ही दिया, तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Second, it is to say that Lalu ji ने ही तो वो
बाहर निकाला,
right? और इसीलिए ठीक है, बहुत अच्छी बात है, लालू जी ने बाहर निकाला, but then there was a CBI which investigated it, right? There's a fair process which happened. It is the courts that convicted him. It is the courts that sent him to jail, right? So you will have to trust, because in certain other cases it is the same courts जिसकी आप दुहाई देते रहते हैं कि हमें भारत की न्याय व्यवस्था पर तो विश्वास है, तो इसमें भी आपको न्याय व्यवस्था पर विश्वास रखना पड़ेगा. नॉट जस्ट एक 4 केस में वो कन्विक्ट हुए और उनको सजा मिली, तो यू कैन नॉट डिनाई दैट, राइट? दैट्स सेकंड. थर्ड, आप हर चीज में, दैट्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग, अलाबाई ढूंढने की कोशिश करेंगे कि किस प्रकार से इस नैरेटिव को हम ऐसा मोड़ दें कि लगे कि लालू जी के साथ बहुत इनजस्टिस हुआ है.
तेजस्वी कहता है हम तो उस समय पैदा भी नहीं हुए थे.
हाँ, तो तेजस्वी का क्या करना है? तो he has not been convicted in that, ना, right? But then he has been convicted in land for jobs, right?
Yes.
So and hence I am saying, इतना बड़ा घोटाला और उसकी इतनी फेयर जांच हुई, और कब हुआ? कम से कम बाहर कब निकला? जब उनकी सरकार थी, वो जनता दल के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष थे और उनकी केंद्र में सरकार थी, उनके प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे देवेगौड़ा, तब ये बाहर निकला. उन्हीं के प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे इंद्र कुमार गुजराल. जब सीबीआई ने इसको इन्वेस्टिगेट किया, जब उनको गिरफ्तार किया, तो उनके प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे. सो अब इससे ज्यादा भी कोई पावरफुल हो सकता है क्या? अगर थोड़ा सा भी ही वाज क्लीन इन दैट, देन द वन मैन कमीशंस जो उन्होंने क्रिएट किया था चारा घोटाले की शुरू में जांच करने के लिए, उसमें जो व्यक्ति वन मैन कमीशन को लीड कर रहा था उसी का नाम चारा घोटाले में आने लगा। इसलिए हाईकोर्ट ने फिर उसको सीबीआई को सौंपा कि सीबीआई को जांच करनी पड़ेगी क्योंकि ये निष्पक्ष नहीं है। आप निष्पक्ष जांच करवा लेते तो सीबीआई को सौंपना ही नहीं पड़ता। तो एट एवरी पॉइंट यू सी दैट कोर्ट्स मॉनिटर कर रहे हैं, सीबीआई है, आपकी गवर्नमेंट है, फिर भी अगर आप इंप्लीकेट हुए, फाइनली कन्विक्ट हुए, यू बीन द फर्स्ट चीफ मिनिस्टर टू गो टू जेल, सिटिंग चीफ मिनिस्टर ऑन करप्शन चार्जेस, तो फिर किस मुंह से आप खुद को बोल सकते हैं कि मतलब मैं इसमें गुनाहगार नहीं था? दैट्स मॉकरी।
अच्छा Mrityunjay ji, we are talking about Bihar thing, and one of the prominent topic these days are SIR, and we know that how opposition is aggressive when it comes to SIR thing.
Yeah.
और recently we have seen कि तेजस्वी said कि मेरा तो नाम ही उसमें से काट दिया है, and what we see what happened after that also. So how do you see this all process, because there is an allegation that the current dispensation in the state is deliberately deleting the voters belonging from the poor class, the Dalit class, the marginal class. How do you see this allegation against the ruling dispensation?
Okay, so election commission is not somebody that is guided by any government at the state or the center, right? बहुत सिंपल है कि अगर एक इलेक्टोरल रोल है हमारे पास, इलेक्टोरल रोल में नाम कैसे जुड़ता है? जब भी इलेक्शंस आते रहते हैं तो कैंप्स लगते हैं, किसी नए को अगर अपना एप्लीकेशन देना है तो एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म आप भर के देते हैं, तो आपका नाम उसमें जुड़ता है, आपका एपिक कार्ड आ जाता है। अब इस इलेक्टोरल रोल में जब तक आप नाम हटाने के लिए एप्लीकेशन नहीं देंगे या ट्रांसफर होने के बाद भी एप्लीकेशन नहीं देंगे, तब तक वो हटेगा नहीं। इसीलिए कई बार आप देखते होंगे एक एक व्यक्ति के दो दो तीन तीन एपिक कार्ड के केसेस भी आते हैं। मैं यहां था तो मैंने एप्लीकेशन दे दिया, नाम जुड़ गया, मैं किसी नए जगह पे गया हूं, एप्लीकेशन दिया तो नाम जुड़ गया, पिछला वाला मैं हटवाता नहीं। सो एज अ प्रोसेस जो इलेक्टोरल रोल है उसमें बहुत सारे ऐसे नाम रह जाते हैं जो या तो चल बसे, फिर भी किसी ने एप्लीकेशन नहीं दिया, या तो वहां से हट गए, किसी ने एप्लीकेशन नहीं दिया, कि उनको क्या फर्क पड़ता है। एंड हेंस दिस इज अ वेरी पीरियोडिक एक्सरसाइज टू से कि इलेक्टोरल रोल को हम लोग थोड़ा सा एक रीचेक कर ले, बहुत सारे लोगों को हटाना ही पड़ेगा। एंड दिस इज अ प्रोसेस दैट हैज बीन कंडक्टेड प्रीवियसली आल्सो इन बिहार एंड इन अदर स्टेट्स। तो इस पे तो कोई मतलब हल्का सा भी कुछ चर्चा ही नहीं होनी चाहिए थी, इसको एक नॉर्मल प्रोसेस की तरह दिखा चाहिए।
What was the purpose of doing this just before the election?
Yeah, so it's in fact good that it is being conducted just before the elections, because it is the elections in which you use the electoral role. Election के पहले अगर मान लीजिए उसका टाइमलाइन इतना लंबा चौड़ा होता कि वो दिख रहा है कि उसके कारण उसकी एफिशिएंसी सफर करेगी तो अलग बात है। इलेक्शन कमीशन ने कहा कि मैं 15 दिनों में करा लूंगा, पहले भी कराया और इस बार भी कराऊंगा, और अभी करा के भी दिखा दिया। Then what's the problem? ये तो सबसे अच्छा है कि जस्ट बिफोर इलेक्शंस इलेक्टोरल रूल एकदम फ्रेश हो गए आपके। दूसरा, लुक एट द एंटायर प्रोसेस। द इलेक्शन कमीशन हैज बीन वेरी वेरी फोर्थकमिंग इन सेइंग कि एक व्यक्ति का भी गलती से नाम नहीं कटेगा। जो भी उसने रोल भी पब्लिश किया वो ड्राफ्ट रोल है। दे हैव सेड कि 1 महीना का टाइम दे रहे हैं। कोई भी व्यक्ति अगर उसको लगता है उसका नाम कट गया तो आप आइए मेरे पास। इनफैक्ट बीच में चूंकि उसके सपोर्टिंग डॉक्यूमेंट्स के इश्यूज आ रहे थे तो इलेक्शन कमीशन ने कहा सिर्फ आप जो एनुमरेशन फॉर्म है वो दे दीजिए, आपके सपोर्टिंग बाद में दे दीजिएगा 1 महीने बाद। It has gone out all its way. See, election commission से ज्यादा आप उसके काम को नहीं जानते हैं। And see, 98% of the people came back. In fact, हफ्ते भर के अंदर अंदर उन्होंने एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म्स भर दिए। And जितने लोगों का भी अभी नाम कटने की बात आई है, they are either dead or they have moved permanently from there. 1-8 लाख नंबर्स है जो डुप्लीकेशन है, मैच नहीं कर रहा है, वो आप चेक कर सकते हैं। Now look at the problem actually is, वाइल ये बोल रहे हैं कि नाम कट जा रहा है गरीबों का, दलितों का, प्रॉब्लम है कि इसमें नाम बहुत सारे ऐसे लोगों का कटेगा जो इंडिया के नागरिक नहीं है, लेकिन ये खुल के उसके बारे में बोल नहीं सकते, राइट? उसी सीमांचल रीजन में नाम कटेंगे वैसे लोगों के,
बांग्लादेशी, रोहिंग्या,
बिल्कुल। वो बिकॉज जो हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो सिर्फ इंडियन सिटीजन्स को अलाउ करता है वोट करने के लिए। जो सिटीजन है ही नहीं क्यों वोट करेगा, तो उनके नाम कटेंगे। लेकिन चूंकि ये इनकी हिम्मत नहीं है या कम से कम पब्लिकली तो इस चीज को नहीं बोल सकते, तो उसको प्रॉक्सी के तौर पर गरीब दलित ये बोलने लगते हैं। क्यों गरीब का ही क्यों कटेगा, दलित का क्यों कटेगा? कोई नाम देख के कोई काट रहेगा। सो दैट्स अ पॉलिटिकल नैरेटिव दे हैव बीन ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट, जिसने एक्चुअली ग्राउंड नहीं पकड़ा। आप देखेंगे ये आम लोगों से नहीं जुड़ा, ये मुद्दा सिर्फ पार्टीज ही बोलती रही। और इन्होंने अभी सबसे बड़ा फौपा ये कर दिया मतलब किस हड़बड़ में इनको एक एपिक कार्ड लेके बैठ गए, इन्होंने बता दिया कि मेरा ही नाम कट गया, और उस इतनी जगहसाई हुई, इलेक्शन कमीशन ने बता दिया कि आपका तो नाम है ही यहाँ पे,
तो दो है इनफैक्ट।
एंड नाउ द प्रॉब्लम इज, अभी तो इनका एपिक कार्ड उनको जमा करना पड़ेगा, ये जो दूसरा वाला दिखा रहे थे, और फिर जांच होगी कि, और एंड इलेक्शन कमीशन हैज सेड कि ये तो हम ट्रेस ही नहीं कर पा रहे एपिक नंबर, तो ये आया कहां से आपके पास? he'll have to answer that now. तो खुद फंस चुके हैं.
He will be in trouble. Huh?
Yeah, he is in trouble. Yes.
अच्छा, we were talking about the rise of left, mainly Naxal movement and all in Bihar, और हमने देखा कि कैसे उस दौर में लेफ्ट पार्टी का राइज हुआ, नक्सल मूवमेंट का राइज हुआ। 2000 के बाद वो चीज़ नहीं थी, स्पेशली इन द पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज की बात करें तो जो उनका हिस्सेदारी था असेंबली में, वो दैट वाज नॉट देयर। बट इन द लास्ट असेंबली पोस्ट 2020 दे came with a very good number because of, you can say, that the smart seat distribution of Tejasvi or whatever the reason was. They came up with a good number and they won 16 seats and they are now part of the assembly. So how do you see the rise of left in Bihar? क्योंकि वो बहुत prominent रहा है and we have seen because of that what has happened and what Bihar has faced because of that. So how do you see the rise of left in Bihar? And are they going to make any impact in this election also?
So left has been, traditionally being very strong in certain regions. आप भोजपुर रीजन ले लेंगे, मगध ले लेंगे, शाहबाद में थोड़े एरियाज ले लेंगे, बेगूसराय वाला रीजन ले लेंगे. So historically रहा है, because what has happened is, आप देखेंगे 80s में 90s में उसने जो दलित वर्ग था और एक तरह से मजदूर वर्ग था, जो खेतीहर मजदूर था, उसकी आवाज बनकर वो उभरे. They spoke about their minimum wages. They spoke about dignity for the women.
और जो खेती करते थे और जिनके पास जमीन नहीं थी,
जो भूमिहीन थे, तो they became kind of a leader for these people, right? And hence there's a certain very strong vote bank of theirs in these regions who still ascribe to their ideology, who still support them, right? And what happens essentially is with RJD, there's a very good transfer of vote which happens, because their vote banks are also very not the same but very similar kind of, right? So in the upcoming elections also, I think the left will have an impact, right? They have a certain vote bank in almost all areas of Bihar. There's a certain number of people who will vote for them, right? So especially in the Magad region, Magad, Bhojpur, Begusarai, they are going to have an impact, yeah.
So we have discussed much about the Lalu era and all. Let's focus on the Nitish era. The things started changing in Bihar when Nitish ji came as a chief minister in Bihar. So the first term was very good, and when he went for the second term, जब वो वोट दोबारा मांगने गए 2010 में, ही स्टार्टेड सेइंग कि अगर काम किए हैं तो हमारे काम का मजदूरी दीजिए. तो वो हाउ डू यू सी नीतीश जी टू टर्म, क्योंकि उसके बाद बहुत चीजें बदली है. आई विल कम ऑन दैट लेटर, बट हाउ डू यू सी द फर्स्ट टू टर्म ऑफ नीतीश कुमार जी? यू हैव रिटन मच अबाउट दिस in your book.
So I've always maintained that if you were to talk about the best governance stints of chief ministers across the nation, across our history of independent India, the 2005 to 2010, or let's say till 2016 era of Nitish Kumar will stand as one of the best ever kind of governance regimes of any chief ministers across India. It was a wonderful stint. All the basics were done right. Whether it was in the case of infrastructure, roads were built on a very, very massive level. Electricity, reached almost all the villages. Law and order was suddenly turned around, right?
Education also.
Yeah. So in a state where, people would not move out of their homes after 6 p.m., in 2006 and 7, fast-track courts were established. Almost all MP, MLAs who were facing any kind of criminal cases, their cases were fastened. Almost all criminals, Bahubalis, not just from the opposition, even from Nitish's own party, so even a Shahabuddin went to jail, even a Sadhu Yadav went to jail, even a Prabhurat Singh who was with Nitish Kumar went to jail, even a Anand Mohan who was with Nitish went to jail, even a Sunil Pandey who was with Nitish went to jail.
Yes.
So everybody across party lines went to jail. Right?
The message was very clear.
The message was very clear that he would not, meddle with the law and order process, right? So the law and order was turned around suddenly, you would say, right? There was a lot of good social policies, actually socialist politics. When we speak about that, we have the sad part is that we have brought it down to just talking about caste. Socialism is not just about caste, right? And hence you do not find any good socialist leader in the country today, right? I often say that Nitish Kumar is the last socialist leader that we have. We will never have another good socialist leader in the country because of the very depth of understanding is not there. But look at that era when he first bifurcated OBC into OBC and EBC caste to say that a large chunk of the caste are not getting any benefits of a reservation, right? And that's a wonderful policy, right? A lot of other states did that. When he brought 50% reservation for women in panchayats, that is real empowerment, right? When he brought those policies of bicycles for school going female students, uniforms for them, then he extended it to boys also. Now that had such far-reaching consequences. It is not just to say that the girls started going to school more, they started staying longer in school, right? The education level increased, and hence their marriageable age increased. So it affected their health also in a good way because the delivery of the kids, happened at a later age. It decreased the total fertility rate of the state as well. So there was such a far-reaching consequences of socialist policy which could have been, which is just 2,000 rupees, right?
Yeah.
2,000 rupees could have had such a long impact, right? And hence I consider it to be a wonderful, kind of a stint for anybody to look forward to, for anybody to learn governance. And hence you see in 2010 elections, the kind of mandate that BJP, JDU government got has been unprecedented, and I don't think it will ever be repeated again, right? And that continued till 2013, I think, which at which point I think, political reasons became so heavy or became so important that it started overtaking, governance priorities.
You yourself said that post 2013, I will come to it, but there was a major incident, if you remember, and you must have covered in that book also, कि जब साहबुद्दीन जेल से निकले, and he gave the statement कि हमारे मालिक या हमारे नेता जो है लालू जी हैं, नीतीश जी नहीं है, and that what RJD and Jadyu was in coalition. I just want to there are many stories कि क्या हुआ था, कब कैसे साहबुद्दीन वापस से जेल में भेजे गए. आपने बहुत सारे नेताओं से बात की है इस किताब को लेकर के, बहुत सारे इनसाइड स्टोरीज आपने इसमें लिखी है. क्या हुआ था एग्जैक्टली?
नो, सो शहाबुद्दीन सबको पता है, उनके ऊपर मल्टीपल केसेस थे. 2007 में पकड़े जाते हैं, फरार रहते भी हैं, थोड़े दिन फिर जेल जाते हैं, और जब तक महागठबंधन की सरकार नहीं आती है तब तक वो जेल में ही रहते हैं. इनफैक्ट जेल से 1-2 ऑडियो वायरल होते हैं लालू जी के साथ उनके, जिसमें लालू जी उनको कहते हैं कि देखो बहुत ही परेशान कर रहा है, तो शहाबुद्दीन कहते हैं कि चिंता न करिए, होकर काम हो जाए, राइट? बट एंड आई थिंक some of these incidents made Nitish Kumar uncomfortable after he went along with RJD. In fact, जब शहाबुद्दीन जेल से बाहर आते हैं,
वो जो लाव लश्कर पूरा,
करेक्ट, वो भागलपुर से सीवान तक 600 गाड़ियों का पूरा काफिला लेकर पूरा जाते हैं, राइट? वो पूरे सारे टोल्स एकदम खाली वाली कर दिए जाते हैं, पूरा 600 गाड़ी इस तरह से गुजरती है, और उनका फिर बयान देना कि लालू जी मेरे नेता है, नीतीश जी तो परिस्थितियों के मुख्यमंत्री हैं, उनका बयान देना, बिग स्टेटमेंट. एंड किसी ने उसको, लालू जी या किसी ने भी उनकी पार्टी से उसके विरुद्ध कुछ नहीं कहा, खंडन नहीं किया उसका. तो Nitish ji must have been very, very uncomfortable with these statements and the kind of things that happened. In JDU BJP government, Shahabuddin could not have been released and he could not have traveled with so much fanfare, right? So he had to compromise on those in some of these things, and it is there that he started feeling very, very uneasy with working with them. When Nitish ji first formed a understanding with RJD and he was going to form a government, I think he would have thought that कि लालू जी का समय अब चला गया, अब वो बहुत पुरानी बात है. Now they would have reformed, so as to say, as a party and as a person. And now if we speak to them or we work with them, govern with them, अब वैसी चीजें नहीं होंगी. I think
because he was out of power for long time,
right? But Nitish ji, I think miscalculated there, because the core of character of a person, of an organization, of a party does not change. The core always remains the same. And even now I say, when people say कि यार अब लालू जी थोड़ी है, तेजस्वी है, पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं, ऐसे वैसे हैं, I say the core remains the same, right? So even Tejaswi may not have criminal cases on him. He has corruption cases, but not criminal cases of him. But everybody around him does have criminal cases against them. They are the same people. He still has Lalu Yadav with him. He still has Bhai Virinder with him. He still has Surinder Yadav with him. He still has all those people with him. And they would be the actual ones who would be ruling the areas and the grounds, right? When he comes in power. So that doesn't change.
You talked about Tejaswi Yadav, and we have seen how good he has done in the last polls. अच्छा चुनाव उसने लड़ा भी और चुनाव परिणाम भी उसके हिसाब से अच्छे आए. हम लोग कहते हैं कि जब भी बात करते हैं हम लोग के एक डायनेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स की, कहीं ना कहीं तेजस्वी को वो विरासत में मिली, वो वोट बैंक मिला विरासत में. लेकिन मैं हमेशा कहता हूं कि एक जो लालू जी का बर्डन था ना, जो क्राइम का, जो स्कैम का, वो भी कहीं ना कहीं तेजस्वी को मिला. डू यू ऑल्सो थिंक दिस कि कहीं ना कहीं एक वोट बैंक तो मिला ही, एक विरासत मिली, साथ में जो दूसरा जो निगेटिव विरासत थी वो भी तेजस्वी को मिला, और उसी के वजह से शायद वो उस तरीके से आगे आने वाले दिनों में बिहार की राजनीति में ना कर पाए. वी डोंट नो व्हाट विल हैपन इन कमिंग फ्यूचर, बट पीपल टॉक अबाउट इट.
सो अगर आपको ये दिखाना है कि आप अपने पिता से अलग हैं और आप नई पीढ़ी के हैं, तो आपको बहुत क्लियर सिग्नल्स और आपके एक्शंस में वो दिखना चाहिए, राइट? Now what has happened, look at RJD, right? So he may say, again, as I was saying, he may say that I come from a different generation and I have not conducted those sins. It is not my government when those things happened. It was my parents. But the first point should have been a point of repentance, to say that we are sorry for whatever happened then, right? They have never been sorry for what was done then. They do not even acknowledge the things that had happened then because of their misgovernance. So the starting point is missing, first. Second, even when RJD was in governance for 2 short stints in the last 10 years, when you see, and when Tejaswi Yadav was the deputy chief minister, the RJD leaders and their cadres on the ground did the same things that they used to do pre-2005, which is to say, if you speak to a businessman in Patna, he will say when RJD came to power, they again started asking for their hafta. Right? So the character has not changed. On the other side, even when their leaders, all these leaders keep saying such rubbish stuff across, you know, बुरा बाल साफ करो तो ये है, भाई वीरेंद्र कुछ और बोल रहा है, रितलाल यादव वहां से फिरौती ले रहा है, जेल का जा रहा है. Does he ever condemn these leaders or their acts? If he really leads a different kind of a party or a generation, he should have condemned them. He could have set an example by saying, okay, this is a person who has so many criminal charges over him, I'll not give him the party ticket. That could have shown that, oh, he intends to at least lead by example or a different way, which is absent. And hence, rest of the things that he says, it sounds very hollow because it is not followed with actions.
Right. So, Mrityunjay, you said about key things started changing post 2013. What happened for Nitish ji?
I think there was a fundamental difference that, which is Nitish ji said, he did not want to accept Modi ji's leadership, right? His leadership of the NDA, which was to go into the polls. He was almost the prime ministerial candidate after he was declared the chief of the campaign committee, right? So as soon as he was declared the chief of the campaign committee, Nitish ji understood that he would be the prime ministerial candidate, right? And he said, I cannot accept his leadership, I have my differences. He was criticized also for this because it was said that, you know, he was for all these years in the same party which had Narendra Modi ji as the chief minister of Gujarat. So then he did not say anything, right? But that was his difference, and he made it a point of with so much, you know, kind of a point of principle that he said, I cannot, go along with this party anymore. He separated, right? And I think before 2014 elections, I think he miscalculated kind of his own influence and the influence of the works he had done to say he thought the kind of work he has done, it would fetch him votes irrespective of anything else, which does not happen in Bihar, right? So development is good and may fetch you votes, but only if it aligns with the caste arithmetic. If it does not align with caste arithmetic, even developmental votes would go for a toss. And that's what happened in 2014, let's say you see, right? he miscalculated it. Lok Sabha elections, his party was thrashed very badly. He resigns. He brings in Jitan Ram Manjhi as the chief minister. He goes on kind of a political, sabbatical for almost an year, right? And then comes back, aligns with RJD. Now, I think what happens after 2013 is he became more of a politician than an administrator, maybe, right? Even in 2005 to 10, he was a politician, very sharp politician, because to send your own people to jail and still be in government is a very sharp thing to do. But that was still primarily driven by governance.
Because that was the era. एक तरफ मोदी गुजरात में एज अ विकास पुरुष गुजरात मॉडल बहुत बातचीत होती थी उसकी, और दूसरी तरफ नीतीश कुमार सुशासन बाबू के तौर पे पैरेलली राइज कर रहे थे. एंड आई थिंक ही somehow miscalculated the thing, and because of that I think Bihar has also suffered post 2014.
See, what happens is any state in the world, if it has grown, it would have grown because there were a consistent policy that was carried out over 2-3 decades. Gujarat became Gujarat because, right since liberalization, it picked up on industrialization and it did it across, right? And then we talk about Gujarat today, right? So it took 20-30 years. Same about China, same about South, any kind of the world, any part of the world you see. So the path that Bihar had taken in 2005, it needed to sustain on that path for at least 2 to 3 decades for it to turn into a state which could be quoted an example out of. But what happened is, after 2013, we had such unstable governments, right? And even though Nitish Kumar was the chief minister consistently, you have partners in the government which are poles apart. RJD and BJP are poles apart, even in their developmental philosophy, right? So what happens is, if you take a certain path to say, these are my priorities over the next 5 years, every 2 years the government changes. There's a certain sync between the ministers, the bureaucrats, overall, directive and everything. So if it keeps on changing every 2 years, the state will not have long-term developmental path on which it will be able to travel. So roads फिर भी बन जाएंगे, छोटा पीरियड साल भर में बन गया. अच्छा, रोड्स उस समय भी बन रहे थे, अभी बन रहे थे. एक लॉन्ग टर्म विजन वाला जो काम होना एक बार स्टार्ट होता है, it will get disrupted, and that got disrupted every 2 years.
Because of it changing sides.
Changing governments, change in ministers, and then there would be a change in bureaucrats also, because ministers, bureaucrats, there is a certain frequency, alignment, all that happens. So it disturbs the entire structure. And no state would be able to see the example of Jharkhand also, very lively example of why the state suffered, because there were no stable governments in the first 15 years of the rule.
You talked about Jharkhand. We have seen this time there was a new player, Tiger Jairam Mahto. And why I'm taking this name, let me tell you, because this time there is a new entrant in Bihar politics also. There is Prashant Kishore.
Yeah.
So some people are comparing him with the because both have different personality, but last time Tiger was there, this time PK is there. So, and we all know that how Tiger has impacted BJP, mainly NDA. Almost on 25 seats, BJP severely got dented by him only, and because of this, BJP failed to come to power. Same in Bihar, PK for the first time gaining momentum, getting huge crowd during the Padyatras, rallies. How do you see Prashant Kishore in this election? Is he going to play a critical role in this election? And is he going to be a key player who will come to power in this state?
So, if you see in Jharkhand, what Jairam did was he picked up on issues which are emotive issues, right? Which is the issue of Sthaniyata, 1932 Khatiyan, and those kind of issues, which resonates with people, right? But which also do not have a solution, to be honest, right? All politicians will pick up these issues when they have to rise, and will forget these issues when they are already in power. He comes from a caste, the Kurmi Mahto caste, which is very dominant in Jharkhand. They have almost 18% kind of population, so that they have a sizable influence. And the party which earlier kind of had an influence on this caste is the Ajsu party. Which Jairam took away, right? And
the core
hence,
voter of
and hence dented Ajsu and in turn the NDA, right? So to comment upon his leadership, I would still need some. I would still give him some time to perform in the role that he is in, and then to decide if he's also a good leader and not just somebody who's a rebel. You should give him some time, right, to decide.
Because why I'm comparing him with Tiger Ning, he is also raising the issues related to the state only, poverty, migration, Bihari Asmita, and all.
So the issues that PK has been raising have been very pertinent, to be honest, right? Any politician, and especially a young politician, if he speaks about education and health and migration, it's very welcome. It's a welcome change that you are not speaking on caste lines and speaking on these things. So that's wonderful that he's touring the state, meeting people, understanding their issues. That's wonderful. The only issue that I find in his campaign is, I think, when you create such a party or a social movement, it needs a very organic time and organic process to associate people with it, and for them to be very emotionally and closely connected to you, to resonate with what you're saying and who you are, right? It takes its own time or a certain level of cohesion on the same issue. So, for example, the AAP party, why it was successful was because it came out of a movement to which people were very, very closely associated, emotionally associated, right? They were with that movement, and it is the same people who then, went out to vote for AAP. But in Prashant Kishore's case, I think because of his ambition or whatever, he has tried to speeden up that process, right? Of going to that level. And in that process, he has used all his resources, his money, and so on. And he has an entire fleet of people who are on his salary. I'm not saying it's wrong to, give salary to people, but see, voting is an emotional process, right? For people to be connected to you, again, as I said, it should be organic. You cannot make it a corporatized process wherein I'm reaching out to people. I've spoken to everybody. There's an entire fleet of 5,000 people of mine. And suddenly people will turn up and vote for you, right? So I think that organic part of that process has been missing. Having said that, I still feel he will have a sizable vote bank, which he will gain, because people who are disillusioned from either sides.
Will be new voters?
So I think most of these voters will be young voters, right? Because it is young voters who would resonate more with his kind of narrative. People who have been disillusioned from both sides, so as to say. People who want a certain new kind of leadership to emerge, who want to try something new, or not very hardened on caste lines. Those kind of people, they will. And this will also be very seat specific, right? You will see that in certain seat when there are two candidates wherein people do not have a preference, PK may field a third candidate, right? Which some of people may like to vote for. So it will also be very, very seat specific. So yeah, there's a sizable vote bank which he will get. But I'm still very doubtful on the kind of impact it will have on in terms of the number of seats that he brings to the assembly.
But whenever we talk about PK, there is a common question: किसका वोट काटेगा वो? भाजपा का काटेगा, मतलब एनडीए का काटेगा, या फिर महागठबंधन का काटेगा?
Very difficult to define at this moment, because what happens is the election narrative gets defined in almost the last 15 days of the entire process, right?
Agree.
तो अभी वेट करना पड़ेगा आपको कि वो किसको टिकट देते हैं, किस प्रकार के लोगों को, उसका कॉम्बिनेशंस क्या होता है, किस सीट पर किसको मिलता है, एक नेचुरल नैरेटिव क्या बन के निकलता है उनका और उनकी पार्टी का, वो शायद ही मे नॉट इवन हैव अ कंट्रोल ऑन, ही वुड वांट अ सर्टेन नैरेटिव, लेकिन आप लास्ट में देखेंगे कि एक नेचुरल नैरेटिव निकल के आ जाएगा कि अच्छा ये तो इनकी पार्टी है, इन लोगों की पार्टी है, तो वो नैरेटिव क्या निकल के आता है. So you will have to wait for that, and hence it is very difficult to guess at this point of time to say कि इसका ही वोट काटेगा, इस प्रकार के लोग वोट देंगे. Because again, because it's very mixed. See, बाकी छोटी पार्टियां अभी विकासशील इंसान पार्टी है तो पता है कि कौन सी कास्ट की पार्टी है. चिराग पासवान की पार्टी है तो पता है कि कौन से मोटे मोटी लोग हैं. तो उसको आप डिफाइन कर सकते हैं कि they have not used caste as a voting block, right? So difficult to define.
Mrityunjay, let's talk more about Nitish Kumar ji, because almost 20 years he ruled the state. Last election, when he was campaigning, he used to say कि ये मेरा अंतिम चुनाव है, आप लोग मुझे जितवाइए. Despite that, we have seen the number of seats got decreased and most of his minister lost the polls. Right. Coming back to this election, क्योंकि वो वो कह रहे थे कि ये मेरा अंतिम चुनाव है, उसके बावजूद भी जो नंबर में वो नहीं दिखा, एंड बीजेपी वाज द नंबर 1 पार्टी इन द स्टेट एट दैट टाइम. अभी उनकी स्थिति क्या है? वी ऑल नो ही इज हैविंग सम हेल्थ इश्यूज, एंड डिस्पाइट ऑफ बिकॉज ऑफ दैट ही इज नॉट प्रोमिनेंटली कमिंग इनटू द मीडिया. वो भी हम देख रहे हैं. तेजस्वी भी उसको लेकर के काफी कितना एग्रेसिव है कि वो उनके साथ क्या समस्याएं हैं. क्या लगता है कि तेजस्वी इस बार जब तेजस्वी कहते हैं नीतीश कुमार इस बार जब चुनाव में जाएंगे तो किस प्रकार जाएंगे? क्योंकि दिस इलेक्शन इज कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट. पीपल आर सेइंग दिस विल बी हिज लास्ट इलेक्शन. पिछले चुनाव में भी लोग कह रहे थे कि उनका लास्ट इलेक्शन है, इस बार भी कह रहे हैं. हाउ डू यू सी नीतीश कुमार इन दिस इलेक्शन?
So see, what has happened is Nitish Kumar has reached a stature wherein there's no other leader currently in Bihar even close to his stature, right? In terms of a political stature, in terms of the governance stature and so on. अब लालू नीतीश की का कंपैरिजन होता है, किसका कार्यकाल है, ऐसे वैसे. इतिहास में आगे कौन ज्यादा बड़ा नेता होगा ये बात की बात आएगी. लेकिन अभी के टर्म्स में आपके पास नीतीश जैसा कोई दूसरा नेता बिहार में नहीं. And इसीलिए a lot of people look up to Nitish. They cannot imagine a Bihar without Nitish. If you ask people to, so the same people, while they'll be critical of a certain steps of him or certain things about him, if you ask them to imagine a Bihar without Nitish, they'll not be able to imagine. So there's a certain inertia that is always there in the electorate as well. उनको अगर कोई चीज एक ठीक ठाक लग रही है एंड गवर्नेंस वाइज फिर भी नीतीश जी को आप बोलते हैं कि यार जो भी है ठीक है, मतलब
एटलीस्ट देयर आर नो एलिगेशन अगेंस्ट हिम, पर्सनल एलिगेशन,
कोई करप्शन नहीं, व्हिच इज इन इटसेल्फ बिहार जैसे स्टेट में अपने आप में बहुत बड़ी बात है कि 20 साल कोई चीफ मिनिस्टर रहा, उसके ऊपर एक करप्शन का एलिगेशन नहीं है, व्हिच इज अ मैसिव थिंग. जनरली आप देखते हैं इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चरल वर्क्स हर कुछ दिन में आपको एक नया नया दिख जाता है. अभी पटना में मेट्रो आ रही है तो राघोपुर वाला ब्रिज बन गया, तो अभी 4 हाईवेज नए आ रहे हैं, तो एम्स आ रहा है, तो एयरपोर्ट आ रहा है, कुछ ना कुछ आपको दिखता रहता है. So you're broadly say यार criticism भी है लेकिन दिख रहा है, गवर्नेंस होता है. And hence I'm saying to move past Nitish is very very difficult. Not just for JDU or NDA, even the electorate I would say. They may not consciously tell you that, लेकिन subconsciously they want him to stay. ठीक है यार, वो सब किससे तो बेहतर है अभी ये, right? And hence it would while I still believe there would be a transition which would happen after this election, of course. Next time तो नहीं रहेंगे, लेकिन I still feel there's a lot of history to his governance. There's a lot of a persona that he carries and a very captive vote bank that he has, which not just JDU but any party in his alliance or that group, they do not want to leave that. The moment you say a JDU without Nitish and you ask for votes, it will go for a toss, right? So it's again it's a very mutual thing. See, जैसे वो बोलते हैं ना, बाहुबली इसलिए बनता है क्योंकि लोग उसको बनाते हैं. So नीतीश जी भी इसीलिए हैं क्योंकि लोग चाहते हैं नीतीश जी रहे, भले ही वो बोलने में कुछ भी बोले.
And there is a solid kind of I will not say it a caste vote bank, but apart from caste there is a solid backing, मतलब from every class जो चाहते हैं, they love Nitish for whatever he has done for Bihar. Especially we can say that the phase which we are witnessing right now, Nitish ji has a lot of contribution in that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the entire EBC, that group, right, it loves Nitish. Because
जिसके लिए चिराग उनसे कभी-कभी नाराज भी हो जाते हैं.
So because over 100 of these castes, which in spite of Mandal Commission recommendations being implemented, did not benefit from reservations for all these years. It benefited after Nitish Kumar came in power and made that subcategorization. So that caste group will never forget him for what he has done, and he has never. Again, understand this. He has never used caste in his either electoral rallies or in his speeches. He has never used that. So that group is kind of aligns with him. Not just that, a lot of then other socialist policies that came in. He brought in reservation for women in police constable. He brought reservation for women in engineering and medical colleges seats, right? So now he has, brought reservation for women in the domicile for the women reserved seats in the state, right? Those 35%. So a lot, the women are a very staunch voter for him. They don't want to let him go. Even the prohibition as a policy, which generally gets criticized for its inefficiencies, you ask the women voters in Bihar. They are generally pro that, because a lot of these women have faced domestic violence issues. Their family is going for a toss because of, their husbands or their, male members of their family, because of them being drunkards. So they are very strong supporters of Nitish Kumar.
When I was covering Bihar Post last time, उस समय भी बिहार में दारूबंदी we can't say कि completely हो गया है, and we all know how it is available. But despite of these things, women was like कि नहीं, ये सब के बावजूद we will vote for, because what they have seen, they have suffered a lot because of this liquor thing and all. और उसके बैन के वजह से उनके जीवन में जो बदलाव आया है, that is quite evident on the ground. So नीतीश जी को उस चीज का सपोर्ट मिलता है, डिस्पाइट कि दारू दूसरे तरीके से अवेलेबल है, उसके बावजूद भी. So मृत्युंजय जी, thank you for talking to Organiser. I will say to my viewers कि we all know that बिहार इलेक्शन हमेशा से इंटरेस्टिंग होता है. दिस टाइम ऑल्सो इट विल बी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. बट बिफोर गेटिंग इन टू द पोल्स, आई विल सजेस्ट यू गाइज टू रीड दिस बुक, ब्रोकन प्रोमिसेस. दिस इज अ वेरी वेल रिटन, वेल रिसर्च्ड बुक, और बिहार से रिलेटेड आपको इसमें बहुत सारी कहानियां मिलेगी जो आप सुने होंगे, लेकिन उसके पीछे की कहानी भी आपको इसके बारे में जानने को मिलेगी. सो आई विल रिक्वेस्ट यू गाइज टू रीड द बुक, प्लीज. Thank you, Mrityunjay, joining with Organiser.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.